I've seen some really creative Ghostbuster gear that fans came up with. But it opened number one, and it just never went away, which was to my surprise because, 5 years into it, I was really like shocked that people were still singing the song and watching the movie and dressing up in this jumpsuit and then 10 years and 15 years and 20 years.
It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, I have seen you at so many conventions, and I've wanted to come over and say hi, and I've just never done it because it's always so crazy at those things.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say before we start, I was just, my daughter is 4, and she likes to pick our Halloween costumes, and this year the costume she picked for me is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing to me how that film sort of transcends generations. And so the little kids like it. And, the older people remember when it came out. So you get grandparents for their grandkids and not many movies, can, relate in that way. So it's very special.
I don't think that I can. I mean, maybe I can think of a few movies, but I can't offhand think of any movies that have managed to stay in pop culture for 40 years.
Yeah, well, the 80s came up with some great movies. Of course, there's the Star Wars things that keep going. And
I guess there you go. You picked one.
We went to...
I should have figured that one out.
Yesterday, my son, who's 37, asked me to go to the movies with him to see Back to the Future. So they were showing a special showing of Back to the Future. So some great movies, and I'm glad Ghostbusters is one. But I think that whole Ghostbuster, the fans picked up on it themselves, as opposed to the studio didn't really push it in the beginning, but the fans got a hold to it and started making the costumes and the cars and the backpacks. And that, I think it just sort of, I don't think the studio realized in the beginning that it was going to be, 40 years later, we'd be seeing just groups of people all over the world,
Well, it's such an absurd movie. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
it's just, it's absurd. I mean, in such a wonderful way. And was it a movie that actually performed at the box office, or was it after the fact where it started to gain steam?
No, it opened number one at the box office, and for most of that summer, it stayed at the top spot, which is kind of unusual. And it didn't surprise me because I felt like when we were doing it, it was going to be something special. But normally a movie opens number one, and then after a few weeks, something else replaces it. But it just stayed there, and the song just was number one. It just kept playing and playing. The film was going. And then finally, I think Prince's movie, Purple Rain, knocked out of first place. But so when it finally kind of went off the box office, the song kept playing, the fans kept watching it. So it just, it touched something. And I think it's sort of in a weird, funny way, that primal fear we all have of the unknown and ghosts and things we can't explain. We in the movie sort of tackled that in a funny way. And I think everybody is a little bit, even those who won't admit it, a little bit afraid. And yet it's kind of funny. And so it gave us a chance to laugh at those things that we secretly are afraid of. Everybody's been a kid and is afraid of what's in the closet when the lights are out. And but it opened number one, and it just never went away, which was to my surprise because, 5 years into it, I was really like shocked that people were still singing the song and watching the movie and dressing up in this jumpsuit and then 10 years and 15 years and 20 years. And it was like, wow, they're still this. And they started forming these Ghostbuster chapters, and now there are chapters in every major city in the U.S. and actually all over the world. So you get, and they have their own little Ghostbuster logo, and they do a lot of charity work, which is, I just find it fascinating.
It's kind of like the 501st, actually.
I'm sorry, the 501st?
The 501st is a, there's different chapters as well, but it is it's a nonprofit Star Wars chapters and fan groups that do a lot of charitable work. I mean, that's at its core what it is.
Right.
And they, there's chapters all over the world, every city, every state. It's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I think with Star Wars, and I think it was Star Trek, but they the studio came out ahead of it. They kind of knew what they had, and they really I don't think Columbia really got what Ghostbusters was until after the fact. And suddenly it's like, oh, this is, let's get on. Our fans were making their own backpacks. Before they were available, they were sort of doing this, and I've seen some really creative Ghostbuster gear that fans came up with, and the studios jumped on it after the fact, but they were already out in front of it.
So you said that you sort of felt like you were making something special and different, like while you were doing it, which I find so interesting because during Battlestar Galactica, I mean, some people say, like Eddie Almost is always like, I knew what we had. I mean, I had no idea. Granted, I was like a kid, but I had no idea. What was it about the feeling or the atmosphere when you guys were making that movie that made you feel like you were onto something?
Well, I think Columbia did this really smart campaign. Before we even started the movie, they came up with this logo, with this no ghosts, with the kind of like a stop sign, but the ghost is there. Mm-hmm. And nobody knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. And suddenly it was sort of popping up everywhere. But when I got on the set, the chemistry between the guys, that kind of camaraderie, and it was almost like family because it was fun, but then they'd have their disagreements, and then there was something that we were doing that was a little bit different. I'd done a lot of movies up until then, but there was something about just the chemistry, and people. I think Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd were at this peak in their career, and fans were just really supportive. So there was something a little bit different, and you could feel it. You could feel it.
Yeah. Huh. Well, you talked about how you'd been working steadily before Ghostbusters. What was it that made you want to be an actor? Because I've read a little bit about your upbringing and going into the military and then finding your way to theater. What was it that drew you to it?
I think, growing up, where I grew up at, there was nothing really clear cut. It wasn't like a path that they said, well, you can do this and you can become a doctor or whatever, that I could relate to. I knew I wanted to do something. I knew, not just wanted to, I knew I had to find something. And getting out of high school, I thought the military would be an answer. And then after 10 weeks, I was discharged from the military back at home, but never really having a place. I didn't know, there weren't many successful people in any area, certainly not in entertainment. So there wasn't any consideration. So I went to college. I kept trying to find things, and I finally found a job with a telephone company. I was a communications consultant, which was a professional job. I had to wear a suit. I had a secretary and a little green car that they gave me to drive around. But I didn't really fit. And so up until I found theater, I didn't fit anywhere. I didn't feel like I was, nothing quite made sense. And I was really trying. I worked a lot of different jobs. But when I discovered theater by accident, I just felt this was something I could do. And a lot of people will say to me how wonderful it is to have found a career that you love. And I suppose I do love it, but it wasn't really the love as much as I belonged. And I felt like I got this. I can do this. I mean, it's like Yeah, it was. It felt like me, as opposed to trying to fit in somewhere to make sense out of. How do I do this? I just felt, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So getting the training, making sure I was really prepared for the long haul, because I saw people who would have a moment where they hit, but then they would kind of disappear. So to me, it was like a lifelong journey. But I think it was basically that was the biggest thing. I didn't fit anywhere, and theater and acting, it gave me a home. And yeah, and it wasn't a question of if it'll work or not. It's like this is where I belong. This is the only thing that makes sense for me. So there has to be a way in. And
Yeah.
So
Huh. Well, you talk about how you wanted to do it like a lifelong thing, and I think when I got into this industry, I had the same idea in my mind, but so many people tell you that that's not going to happen.
right. Yeah.
How did you navigate that sort of knowledge? Did people tell you that when you first started? Like what was it that has allowed you to, now, many, many decades later, you're working just as much, if not, I mean,
Yeah.
you feel like the busiest person in Hollywood.
Yeah, I think first off, nobody in my family even understood what acting and that was so like, what are you doing? And also, I had gotten married before I even discovered theater.
Oh,
So
really?
I had a family, and so me saying I'm going to be an actor was like, what are you talking about? You need to get a job. You need to, this is. It just, it was almost like saying I'm gonna walk on the moon, and people
Yeah.
would look at me like you're out of your mind. I just felt I knew it. And of course, I heard all the statistics about how the custodians make more money in theater than the actors do, and all the reasons why you can't do it. But my first marriage, my wife, we had a discussion about it, and I was telling how difficult, how impossible it would be. And she said, but you're already broke, so you're not going to lose any money. So, why not do something that you love? And so my thing is, I know how to hustle enough to get my basics. So I have to go for this. And then having children, I always felt, and sons in particular, I needed to set an example of what was possible. So there was no, this can't work for me, because to me that implied that they couldn't follow their dreams. So I wanted to not just do it, but to have them see what is possible. But I think, it just, I don't know. And of course, I think at the heart of everything was my belief as a kid coming up that there was a universal power, a source that was aware of me and would help me achieve anything that I wanted to achieve, and would make a way for that if I stayed true to that, that it responds to me personally, and that it does to everyone, but most people don't know that. And so, you can say, well, it's God or whatever, but there is, if I can quiet myself, there is a guide that will lead you where you need to go. And so I've always believed that, and I've always and that's never really failed me. I never had anyone in the industry that I could go to as a mentor and say, what do I do? Because maybe I'm just not that guy. I have friends who say, oh, I met so-and-so and they made a call and they opened this door. Nobody's done that for me. I mean, like I said, maybe I'm just not one of those guys who, I was talking to Denzel, who was telling me about how Sidney Poitier sort of took him under his wing and did, but I've never had that. But I do believe that there is a God, there is a source, there is whatever you want to call it. And I'm not even sure God is the best name, but that will open a path for you. And it always has, because if somebody asks me how I got to become a working actor, I could not, because I've had doors open that I had nothing to do with. Just somehow at the right time, and a lot of times when it just seemed absolutely impossible, that way would open up.
Yeah.
And I found that those critical moments, there's an overwhelming fear that wants to get you to turn away. But if you can stand in that, there's an opening that you can step into, and that's always been my way. And I think as a kid, I never doubted that I would find something. I just didn't know what it was. And so going back to the earlier question, when I discovered theater, I knew this is what I've been. This is that thing. Now, has it been all that I thought it would be? No, no. It's been all, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It is what it is. I sometimes have a hard time figuring what that is exactly, but it's been good to me, and I got no complaints.
Yeah. Well, I read a quote that you said, and I literally, there's so many different adaptations of this, but it's like, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right, yeah.
There's nothing that is more true.
Absolutely.
In life.
Yeah, I think so. It was from some script I read of something, but yeah, it's, we don't know, but I do know that we do have, I believe we have a purpose, and there's something specific for us, but it's hard for us to let go. And so the first thing I had to realize very early was that I don't know everything, and I don't know. So for me to take credit or to think that I can plot this out myself, I can't do that. But I know that there's a greater part of me that will somehow, in the quietest moments, and I think a lot of people don't have that, don't believe that. And so it becomes very frustrating when you know it's all on you and you've got to figure this whole thing out. It also becomes very deceptive when you think you can trust someone else or somebody else who owe you this, or who will do this, who promised you, or whatever. There's a thing in the Bible that talks about putting out your trust in man. So one of the things my grandmother raised me, one of the things she really stresses, you can't rely on anybody. There's a greater source that you have to be able to tap into. Because like I said, there's been nobody there have been people who certainly helped me along the way and who I'm indebted to. But just in terms of somebody, making a career for me, or that has not been my experience.
This episode is brought to you by OneSkin. It's the holidays. It is one of my favorite time of the year. I just absolutely love wintertime. The one thing I don't love about winter is that my skin just needs this extra care this time of year. Between the cold weather and rushing around all over, my skin just feels like dry and dull and stressed out. And so that's why one of my favorite things right now is OneSkin's peptide lip mask. This stuff is seriously amazing. I just got it. I can't stop using it. I'm like, I kind of want to smother it all over my face, but I'm just going to keep it on my lips for now. What is so great about OneSkin is that at the core is their patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness, and loss of elasticity. And these results have now been validated in 5 different clinical studies. It is absolutely wonderful. All of OneSkin's products are designed to layer seamlessly or replace multiple steps in your routine, making skin healthier, easier, and smarter. OneSkin just launched their limited edition holiday sets, including the Nightly Rewind gift set, which adds the perfect touch of luxury to your gift list. So this is wonderful. You could give this to anyone in your family. It's got the best-selling face moisturizer, their brand new peptide lip mask, which I mentioned, and a sculpting gua sha tool. It's wonderful. I really do like this product, you guys. So for a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using code Sackhoff at oneskin.co/Sackhoff. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Happy holidays. Hey everyone, if you haven't subscribed to our show, make sure you do that right now. You hit that button. It is the only way to get alerts and know what's coming and what's up. Back to the episode. Well, I was going to ask you about your grandmother because it seems like she had such an influence on who you are as a person and because she raised you. And did she spend time teaching you how to listen to your gut when you were growing up?
Well, I grew up in this, I'm not sure what religious background I have, but I grew up in this Pentecostal church, and that has changed over the years. But back in the 40s and 50s, when I grew up, I was born in 1945. So when I go on the internet, they say, put in your birth year and you got to scroll. It's like, it just never is.
My mom said that the other day. She's like, I just keep scrolling.
Oh my God. It's like, but so I grew up at the time when the church was really, it was Pentecostal. It was really hellfire and brimstone. And it was just scary, very scary. But my mom died when I was 3 months old. I keep saying 3 months. I think might have been 4 months. I don't know. But in my mind, it's 3 months. And, So I was in church all the time. She had me in church, and the church was kind of like the family that sort of looked out for me. I think maybe because everybody knew my mom was, had died. And so people would, in this church, they would tarry for the Holy Ghost. You join church, so you want to be, born again, but you can't just say that you got to now tarry on the altar until you receive the Holy Spirit. And it's quite an ordeal. Anyway, it's, like I said, it's changed a lot since then. But back in those days, we talk about Ghostbusters, back in those, people really believed in the other world, the visitations and all that stuff. So that was just part of, the belief and the Holy Ghost. And so not having a mom and not having a father, she was, I want to say disabled, but, just, it was an impossibility in terms of living any kind of middle class lifestyle. There was lack. Yeah. Almost in everything. Even though I never really saw that. I never grew up thinking, oh my God. But there were times when there was nothing to eat. I assumed the whole world had nothing to eat. I never realized how broke I was until I got into college and went like, oh my God, what? So, but I think that was, her thing was, that was just a part of the church, what the church people believed. I'd go to school, and then on Tuesdays and Fridays, I'd come from school to the church. And then about 6 o'clock, they'd have prayer service. So everybody in the church would be on their knees praying for about an hour and a half. So while they were on their knees praying, sometimes I do my homework on the pews there. But it was that God is real, God is personal. And what I didn't quite understand, and so she would, in terms of her, I'd go to the prayer service and church would start, and then church would go on until about 11 o'clock at night. Long services. And then we'd go home and I'd get up and go to school. But when we'd have ministers sort of preaching and doing their thing, and I loved it because every minister had a different interpretation of the same story. There's only certain basic stories, but my grandmother, we'd walk to church together. Even in the worst weather, because we didn't have a car. But we would talk about the sermons, and she would try to explain them in a way that made sense to me. And so, and we'd have these we talk a lot. We'd have these long discussions. And I'm sure that formed a lot of, my philosophy, my belief, my trust in how you can stand in a storm and not panic and run away, or do something that will alter the course of your life. by that moment of desperation. And yeah, so I'm sure that came from her faith and belief, and also her belief that there was something that was predestined, that was right for me, that I would find that something, or that God would lead me to that thing.
Yeah.
And so that's from her, I think.
Well, you talk about weathering storms, and because your career has been so long, you have weathered storms in your personal life, in your professional life. There's ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. So how do you sit in those storms? So many people have them. I've had them in my personal and professional life, where you don't let them get the best of you.
Yeah, there are times when, it just seems overwhelming. It seems that there is no out. There's, it's just, I've gone down the interviews where I needed the job. I wanted the job so badly that I'm going to an audition and I didn't quite nail it the way I wanted. And I would sit in the parking lot and cry. I mean, as an adult man, I mean, there were times when I just could not see. But there again, there was something there was something waiting. And the relationship that I have with my wife now, we've been together for, next year will be 50 years, but we've been married for 40. And there's having someone in your life who believes in your better life even more than you do, who sees something in you that sometimes you can't see in yourself. Sometimes when things are going, you feel so full, I am all of this, but sometimes when it's not, you don't feel any of that. But someone who can see that in you when you can't see it in yourself. And she's always been sort of an anchor in that way. It took me a minute to really kind of appreciate that, but someone who is consistent and who doesn't lose faith in you as quickly as you do in yourself makes a big difference. And I think that was the difference between my now marriage and my first marriage. We were kids, really. But just someone who sees something. Like my grandmother, I think about, she seemed to see something in me that it made me believe in something. It was unwavering.
Yeah.
And I always say that I know what it's like to be poor, to not have, or whatever, but I don't think there's been a moment in my life that I didn't believe that I was loved. I didn't believe that there's someone who genuinely cares for me. And,
when you have that, you're better off than most.
Yeah, no, that sometimes, I'd be, as a kid, frustrated at school, or just all the stuff. But there would be something about the way she would just sort of look at me or put her hand on my shoulder, and that that kind of gets you through it. My wife is the same way. Sometimes she doesn't say anything, but it's just, and it makes me want to be my better self because I don't want to disappoint. Even now at almost 80 years old, I think back on my life, that things I wouldn't do because I wouldn't want to see the look of disappointment in my grandmother's face. I could not, she would never, I think back on when I was a kid, raising kids practices were different. And people used to beat their kids, to make them, to correct them. You have to, don't spare the rod. And she was never really much into that. My brother, who was a different story, he has a different story about, but I had those moments. But when I was about 10, there was, I didn't do something. I didn't wash dishes, and she told me, and I still didn't do it. And finally, I was going to get this whipping. And so she got the belt out, and she was telling me, and she started this hitting me with the belt. But I was thinking, I always cry when this happens. I always sort of go, oh my God, oh no. So I thought, how bad is it? So she was hitting me with the belt, and I thought, well, that doesn't hurt that bad. So then she was hitting me, she was saying, I was kind of like, how, I was waiting for it to get bad enough so I would cry, but then I could think it's not. And then she finally just got tired, and she sat down. I'm like, are you okay? Can I get you some water? That was the last whipping I ever got. Never happened again. But I don't know why I told that story, but it's, so then we began to talk in a different way. So it wasn't the whipping that I was afraid of. It was disappointing her. It's like,
of course.
I'd rather you just whip me instead of looking at me like that, So
sometimes that's the worst thing. I mean, it is one of the worst things. Like, you don't, I think about now, like my parents and growing up, and like my biggest thing was I didn't want to disappoint them. That is so much worse. Like I knew I was in trouble if my mom was just indifferent.
Right.
And I was like, oh God, this is not going to go over very well. Right. This is not going to be fun. So you grew up with a small, it sounds like small, intimate family. Like you've got now how many boys? 3 boys, 4 boys?
Yeah, 4 sons. I have 4 sons.
No daughters?
I have no daughters, but I have 3 granddaughters.
Okay.
And 2 grandsons. Okay. And I have 2 great-grandsons and a great-granddaughter, who's not biologically my granddaughter, but
You have a big family.
Family is very hard to, growing up without a dad. Now it was me and my brother, and my grandmother raised us, but he left home very early. When he was 15, he went off to, and so it was basically me and my grandmother a lot. And so I never really quite understood. Now I had a big extended family. My mother had 7, a brother and 6 sisters.
Oh, okay.
But they because again, maybe because my mom died, they always sort of embraced me, and they'd argue over who would get to spend time with me, and during the summer vacations, so they were very attentive and really gave me that. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of love there, but just in terms of seeing the kind of family dynamic, like my grandmother wasn't a big cook, so there was no Christmas, or birthday celebration. I could go to my aunt's house and they would, but so I didn't really. Now where it becomes a problem, as a kid, the thing I wanted more than anything else was to be a dad. I wanted to be a father, to be that person for someone that nobody ever was for me, And so when my first son was born, and I think that maybe we talk about finding acting, that was when I knew I had to find something more, that I got to do something. But as a dad, that role was kind of clear. I would watch television, The Father Knows Best, and we see all these, this is how it's supposed to work. And so when I had my kids, and especially when the first marriage ended, I just wanted to make sure that I was there and I was solid, and I told the bedtime stories and I tucked them in bed and I did all those things. But now my kids are grown up. Now this is my time. But now I got the grandkids, and I don't know, nobody talks about the grandparent role. And I don't think I'm a very good grandparent.
Look, there are some grandparents that are like there, and then there are others that are like, I'll see you at Christmas.
Right.
And there's no right or wrong answer to any of that.
I guess, but I would like for it to be, the way I don't understand the role, and I want to be there, but and yeah. So
Well, you're
there's
also
also,
working so much.
and
Like
I'm
I
working and I'm gone and they call and I go, yeah, hey, so what do you need? What do you want? I mean, because I've got this thing to do. Oh, they said, we're going to come, we're going to spend the summer. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be around the summer. So yeah, but I just think I should be better, but I'm not quite sure. I think having role models, I have friends. Bo Bridges is a good friend of mine, and their family dynamic, because his dad, was Lloyd Bridges and his grandfather was, so it's like a beautiful family, the kids, and they all kind of come to, but that's not, that wasn't my, I don't know. I'm not sure how that, I mean, the love is there, but I just don't know
Yeah.
quite. Also, kids, my grandkids, they didn't grow up like, living a few blocks away.
That is vitally important to relationship.
It is.
Is proximity. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's my husband and I moved from Los Angeles 2 years ago back to Oregon, where I'm from, because I wanted my children to have a relationship with their grandparents. Like, I knew that if we stayed in California, that wasn't going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And and that was important to me, and so I knew that we had to make that move. But I'm so curious about your work schedule, because I kid you not, like, you're so, I mean, I know you're so busy, but like, you are so busy. You are on 2 shows right now. Like, how does that even work? Are they on different shooting schedules? Like, I mean, what's a month like for you?
Well, it gets a little weird because, sometimes the schedules sort of conflict, but the 2 shows I'm doing now, there was no conflict because we finished shooting the 6th season of Family Business in May, and I started shooting Boston Blue in July. So there was no conflict that way. But then other things come up, the voiceover stuff, the traveling, the PR stuff,
right?
The convention stuff, so it's speaking sometimes doing. So there's a lot of, how do I fit this in? And the schedule now, it was a conflict. I was supposed to do a thing in Australia, but then I had to cancel it. And so that gets to be a little bit, I think it's frustrating when I feel like I disappoint people.
I know.
They want me to plan something a year away, and I'm like, I don't even know what a year is going to look like.
It's too hard. I've canceled a convention in Australia 3 years in a row. It just, it's best laid plans, I want to go. I'm desperate to go to Australia. Not only do I love Australia, I love the people. Like, I want to go.
Yeah.
But the moment you get there, it's like, if your kid is sick, you can't fly 15 hours away because you can't get back. So like, it's not even just like work schedule. It's like life. It's really hard to get on a plane and go that far away.
Right. Yeah.
But disappointing the fans sucks.
And you don't want to disappoint people.
No.
And the people who want to make it happen, they will not ease you of the guilt. They won't say, oh, well, it's okay. It's like, no, if you don't come, and like, I don't know what, I don't know what I didn't plan on this. I got a call 2 days ago, and now I'm doing this movie, and I know you can understand, but they don't make it easy. That's the hardest thing. I don't want to, and then you don't want to not commit to anything. You don't want to just, so it gets a little, that gets a little, I've been flying back and forth. We're shooting in Toronto now, and Toronto's a nice place, but after 2 months sitting in Toronto, I'm like, this is not my home. I mean,
it's hard.
And
that's not close. That's a 6-hour flight from LA.
Exactly. And then there's always that part of me that feels like I haven't been productive enough. Like, people come and they want me to write a book. So I'm like, but maybe, but I got this. Well, you should write a book, and you should do this thing. And then you should do this, and you ought to be producing, and you're producing, you should be. Yeah. And I'm like, it's like, what I'm saying? It's like
that hustle that I have that in me, that like, I feel like if I have a down day, I'm not working hard enough.
Yeah. That, and you beat you. I mean, I wake up and I'm going to nobody's beating me up more than I am. I mean, I'm hard on myself, and I don't like waking up feeling that way. But it's if I did this, if I did that, that gets very hard. And then you get the family stuff, and you know, and also I think there's a perception of us in the business that people have that is not based on any kind of reality. So the people I grew up with, the people I love dearly, my aunts who love me, but now their children, and so they're kind of reaching out for variety, and I want to be there, but so it can be challenging.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. When you talk about the Blue Bloods spinoff, Boston Blue, like being in Toronto, were you reluctant to take that role, or was it something you jumped at? Because it's the existing show, Blue Bloods was on for 14 seasons, and it was a bit controversial when they canceled that show.
Right.
So how did Boston Blue come about, and how long did you have to think about it before you took it?
Well, let me see. I'm going to choose my words here because Boston Blue, my manager. Well, first off, the two Brandons, Brandon Saunier and Brandon Margolis. They're the two Brandons. They wonderful showrunners and wonderful producers and writers. I mean, brilliant writers. And we did a show called LA's Finest with Gabrielle Union and Jessica Alba a couple of years ago. We did 2 seasons. We shot that in LA, which it wasn't a problem because I was still doing family business, which shoots in LA as well. So that worked out. They've sort of worked out both. And then the Brandons were working on Boston Blue. And so my manager had been sort of tracking it. And then it kind of came up. And my agents, my managers really felt this is, you got to do this. And I liked the show and I liked the idea. And I worked with Donnie Wahlberg and I knew him.
What'd you work with Donnie on?
We did a movie years ago called Butter. Okay. And they changed the name to Never Too Big. I think it might have been one of the first things he did. I was an actor. And we became friends then. And then I did an episode of Blue Bloods. Okay. So from some time we'd meet each other. But it was shooting in Toronto. Mm-hmm. And so what I tried to explain to my manager especially was very excited about the possibility of, and so I kind of, management and how they see things and how you see things. And after talking to the Brandons about this character, I thought it would be an interesting character, one I hadn't played before. So the reasons to do it, and I was kind of on the fence, if I'm really honest about it. Yeah. And then suddenly it was happening. And I thought, well, let me just see what, So, and now we're into it. I'm like, I'm there 100%, at least for this first season. Yeah. And so I don't know how all that sounds. I don't want to say it wasn't something it's just, I'm sort of waiting to see what it is exactly.
I completely understand that. And it makes complete sense to me as an actor. When you've got a life and you've got, things that take your attention, and you see a job that comes across that it seems great on paper, but you want to make sure that it fits, because I don't think people understand that. You're not just saying this could be 1 year of my life. It could be 14. You have no idea what it's going to be. And so you do have to think long and hard about that, because the worst thing that could ever happen is you take a job and you're miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many you don't know. And see, when I look at, it could be 14, If it was 14, I'd be 94 years old. And then the question, do you really want to do this at 94? I mean, these are prime years. And so, so also I didn't know, I had never really shot right in Toronto. I shot in a city called Hamilton. I shot a movie there. I've shot in most of the Canadian provinces, but I never shot and lived in Toronto. And this required me living in Toronto.
It's different.
And so I didn't know what that was going to be. And now that I've been there, I'm like, it's a really nice city and it's really nice people, but it's not home, you know? So I'm flying back. When I get a week off, I'm in LA. I just want to be in my own bed. I want to be home. So there were a lot of things I felt I couldn't know until, and I talked to my representatives and they're still excited. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to get on the plane tomorrow.
You're not the one getting on that plane, spending time away from your family. Yes, it is really hard. Like, I'm constantly saying to people, I'm like, yeah, that series looks great. Would they like to shoot in the Pacific Northwest? How do they feel about Portland? Like, Vancouver is only a 6-hour drive. I'll even do that. I can come home every weekend. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, if this was Vancouver, it'd be a whole different...
it's so much closer. Toronto's so far. But you get to work with Sonequa Martin-Green, who is like... one of my favorite people. Yeah,
she's amazing and lovely and funny. And that was one of the reasons why doing it. I mean, I love the cast of people. Yeah. I mean, it's a great cast and just so many positives. It's the other stuff that you go, I mean, if this was shooting in LA, it would be the dream job.
Oh, God.
But also, how involved. I wasn't sure how involved, because this is a police procedural.
Yeah.
And I'm playing a Baptist minister. It's, how involved can I be? I mean, I'm committing, what am I? So I felt this first year I would know, and we're kind of about halfway through and I'm knowing. So hopefully we can, sit down and review things and as we move forward. I mean, so.
My old manager used to say to me, the only thing that you like less than not working is working.
Yeah, that's true. When the show wraps, I'm so excited to be like, I'm gone, man. That's like,
peace out.
You know.
I'm like the first person in my car. I'm like, see you guys later. Bye.
That's right.
Like, didn't you hang out and like hug everyone and like say goodbye? I'm like, no, I've just gone.
I gotta go. It's true. But it's so exciting to get the job, and when it's over, man, I am so done.
Yeah, absolutely. And then family business is in season 6.
Season 6, yeah. I mean, it was like the little engine that we started.
Yeah.
Carl Weber has a publishing company, and he's a writer. He has several, different series. Family Business is one. He's written 8 or 9 books about this family. He's a wonderful writer, and but he wasn't into film. So he got with Tridescent, a production company, and they started making little movies. And so Family Business was a little movie but I think he always wanted to do a series. So they took that to BET, who liked it and decided to make a series out of it. So we went back and shot some filler stuff, and that was our first season. And it did really well in the first season. So then that came back, and now it's found an audience. And as an urban audience that loves this show, I mean, it's surprising to me, because literally, if I'm traveling through certain cities, I get more people coming up talking about Family Business than Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And that's a surprise. Very different audience. It's a fun show. I love the cast. It's a wonderful cast and very different. And it's, as an actor, to play this head of mafia, gangster, from time to time killing a few people. That's interesting to play. And then to play this Baptist minister who has a strong moral compass, and it's nice to play both. So it's kind of a cool time.
Well, you've played a lot of characters throughout your career that that seem to be the grounding force. What is that? Is that sort of like even keel, like take a deep breath type of thing? Is that in you, or is that just something you become really good at playing?
Well, I guess, I think as actors, they'll find that thing or that something, and people want to see that and want to bring that to their movie.
Yeah.
I like comedy. I think I'm, I can be
you're very funny.
but they, maybe the voice, maybe something that people kind of, I don't know. I kind of marvel at it because I feel like I never had a job. I've never had I discovered theater. This is what I do. I'm not, but those roles are kind of interesting. But as you get older, they become a little limited. So people will call and say, we really love your work and we want you to be in this thing and you're the head of the FBI, but we only need you for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, but I want to work. I don't, I'm not looking for just, and I know why you want me there. And I know you probably put my name, in the beginning credits and want me to go out and talk about it. But at the end of the day, it's why am I here?
I know, because you're at the end of the day, you're an artist and you want to act.
That's what we do.
That soul fulfilling thing, right? Like that brings me peace.
Exactly. That's and otherwise, it may come a time when I'm so old that if you want to sort of wheel me out for.
I was just going to say, are they going to wheel you out and put an earwig in?
There have been actors who I hear they've done that. These guys are so old, they tell them what to say and prop them up. And but
look, that health insurance is real important.
Oh, it's very important, especially now. It's
oh my God.
Crazy times, so.
Oh my God, it's so crazy.
It's. I never thought we'd be at this place, but that's a whole other discussion. But so there'll come a time. But right now, I want to find that role. I want to dig deep. I want to show up with everything I got. As opposed to, it's not about. It's a story about this, and we just need you to bring this information and then get the hell out of the way so we can get on with our story.
Yeah,
and that is,
That's hard. I've said that a million times, that it's so ironic that I finally, at 45, have so much life experience. I'm finally a mom. I'm finally I've gone through some real fucking hardships. Excuse my language. And now they don't want me to use any of it. They're like, oh, no, we just want you to come in for a little bit. And I'm like, no, but I want to be the one that's on the floor freaking out and crying and doing this and doing. I want that. No, we don't need you for that. Can you? Can you be a lawyer? I don't want to be a lawyer.
That's the frustrating part of it. One thing, the frustrating is when you're not working, but then when you are, and it's like they don't want. They don't want what this should be about. You want to dig deep.
Yeah.
I don't just want a paycheck.
How do you that thing that when you've got more to give and you're not finding the opportunities, how do you navigate that? And we talked about it a little bit before, and not become bitter. Because you've been navigating this industry for 60 years?
Yeah. It's been getting close to 60 years. I started acting in 66. And so, next year it'll be 60 years. I think there was a time back, it was a time in 2011, I know exactly what time it was. I was getting ready to do this stage play, and it was going to be very physically demanding. And so I thought, well, let me just go and get, I do my yearly checkups anyway, but let me just make sure that everything is working. And I felt like I was in the best shape of my life. I was playing an ex-boxer. So I really worked out hard, and I went in to just do routine stuff. And they discovered there was a small tumor that just, just they weren't sure, but they was going to send it off to check. And then it came back. It was malignant. It was cancer. So, and that just opened up a whole thing, cancer. I mean, that, so, after going through everything, we decided to have surgery, and we did the surgery. And all the while I'm working, throughout this
You
whole
worked?
thing, I worked. I mean, so the doctor explained things, and he didn't explain things clearly, saying maybe we might. And then I wake up from surgery, and I got this ileosity bag that he said it was possibly that might be a possibility. There was no way you could do the surgery because you had to, it was rectal, and you had to disconnect things.
Yeah.
And then, sew them up and hope they healed. It was really complicated. And then I was having so much, wearing this bag and trying to work, and nobody knew I had it. And it was a nightmare. And I kept saying to the doctor, how long, when do you, should have been maybe, 3-4 months for it because you had to reattach things.
So the bag was meant to be temporary.
It meant to be temporary until things healed, and then you can remove the bag and get on with your life. But I was shooting this movie in the television show in Hawaii, and so I'm like, when? And he said, well, yeah, maybe so. He sent me to this thing to get an exam, and the lady was having trouble doing, so she just kind of gave up. So anyway, so he basically says, okay, well, it's probably healed now, it's fine. And he took the bag off, and then I was having all kinds of trouble for about 4 weeks. And then I was set to go do an event in Ohio that morning, and that night, oh my God, I was in so much pain. I was my stomach had just got hard. And my wife said, no, we got to go to the hospital. Because it was just really excruciating. And I went to the hospital, and they found that it had ruptured. So all the poisons were going through my body. And the doctor was like, oh, he was just going to, we have to do surgery right now. And I'm like, now? I said, yeah, we have to go. But there was a part of me, I'm telling this story. There was a part of me that kind of knew I could feel my body shutting down. I mean, all the while they're running tests and they're doing stuff, that this could be it. So we came in, it lost all the color in the skin and sweating. And the funniest thing, seriously, this guy who was pushing the gurney there, he said, hi, my name is Gabriel. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Gabriel, like, do you play a horn? And what a weird name. And then we get to the operating room, and the guy says, hi, I'm Christian. And I go, what? So all this stuff. But on the way, running down the hall, they were running down the hallway.
Like it was that big of a deal.
It was that big a deal. And so I got somebody's phone. I called my sons, and I said, I just know I love you. But what was happening, I knew that this could be it.
Yeah.
That I could die. And it was in that moment that you think, especially you grow up in church, you either start begging, like, oh God, please, don't, or you just go, maybe this is it. I mean, if it is, then everything that I've done, maybe that has to be enough. I mean, I can't. So we went into surgery, and I kind of made peace with it in a weird way. But when it was over, the feeling I've had is like, you know what? Maybe there's no Academy Awards, or maybe all I've done, it has to be enough. Because it is what it is. It wasn't for lack of trying. It wasn't for a lack of. Now people go, you can write a book and you can do this. I go, but maybe, maybe this is enough. And
maybe you've done enough.
And I got to make peace with that, because otherwise I hate myself, because you should have done this and you could have been somebody. So yeah, I think that was kind of life-changing for me to just go, to keep thinking that somehow the career somebody else had should have been. I want a career. My career is nothing unless it's like Denzel's career. And you go, you know what? We're different people, and so yeah. But it's hard. It's hard to make sense out of. I don't know why. I always say, if you're acting and you're working, you really don't know why you're working and somebody else isn't.
Yeah.
Because you really don't know why they chose you. They'll say whatever, and then if you're not working, you don't know why somebody else is working and you're not, because none of it made sense. And I guess it sort of is what it is. And maybe you have to be enough. Now my representation will tell me, if you just write this book, Ernie, and if you just do this thing, and then we can get you this and we can get you that. And I kind of go, you know what? Maybe this has to be enough, And if it gets that, I would love to get an Academy Award. I'd love to find a role that could define my career. I'd love to have a chance to do a really funny rom-com, but maybe that's not in the cards. I don't know. Yeah. And maybe it is. I'm open to whatever, but I'm not going to lose any sleep. Yeah.
It's, I wanted to, because, life's cut short is such an interesting thing. And, I've had similar experiences just with coming to terms with, that nothing's promised. There is no guarantee.
Yeah.
And there is no guarantee that that our children are going to outlive us. There is no guarantee of anything.
Exactly.
And I think the moment when I realized that, it was very freeing, because it was the first time in my life when I realized that I really did not have control over a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then I just had to let that go. And have every day that I'm given with the people that I love really is a gift, because it wasn't promised.
Exactly. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like, well, God must love them more than me. It's like, how come they get it? I don't get it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it is just to experience this life. I mean, it's just, I was in the mountains, yesterday, in Southern California, and the air was so clear and it was just so beautiful. And I go, what a gift just to. So sometimes we need to just kind of remember that how, there was a year and a half ago, they renamed the street I grew up on after me in my little hometown, and it was quite an honor. But what was interesting was it was a big turnout of kids. I grew up in these projects, government housing, and as you come out of the government, there's a street that sort of runs through town, and that's the street that the first they wanted to name a different street. I'm like, I can't relate to that street, but name the street that so when you come out of projects, you have to come out on that street.
Is it Hudson?
Yeah, it's Ernie Hudson.
Oh, it's the whole thing.
The whole name, yeah.
The whole name.
They put the signs
no
up
confusing.
And the Ernie Hudson. Right now it's Ernie Hudson Way, but then they said it'll probably be Ernie Hudson Drive or whatever. But the turnout was really bigger than I imagined. There was some state officials and local officials, but there were a lot of kids from the community, from the projects, that reminded me of me. And I thought, they were so beautiful and amazing, but I go, there was nothing in my mind, at least, that was special. It wasn't like I felt, some people, they're kind of gifted from the beginning.
You mean growing up about you?
Like outstanding athletes, or this little kid can sing, or that this kid I was just like all those other kids. And yet, I've been blessed. And and I'm sure it'd be nice to get, but look how much, I don't know, I just have so much to be thankful for, but then you can all, and if you don't appreciate that, you never enjoy it, because you're always thinking about what you could have had and you maybe should have had. And I think to be at this stage, my grandma would say, Christ, it says he was, an example of the light. But we're all lights. We're all examples for people so you want to live your life in a way that that you reflect what is possible, what God can do. And so to be a person of a certain age, this 80 thing is really kind of, but,
is it doing a number on you?
Yeah, it's like, that's a big number. 70 didn't bother me. 80 is like, but
that's what my parents said too. My parents are both turning 80 and they were both my dad is like, he's in a hyperbaric chamber. He's like doing all this stuff. He's like, but because he said it hits different. It's different.
It's different, and, but to be in a place where I don't have a lot of what I would consider a lot of money, but enough.
Yeah.
My health is good to, I want to be the guy who didn't go to jail, the guy who did raise his kids, the guy who has a healthy marriage, So to live the best life, and that's all we can do, is to be, the best we can be. And you never know who's watching, that people are always watching and making decisions about their lives based on what they see you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really tricky because this business sometimes will lay that thing on you. You should be more, and there's no end to that.
Yeah.
Money's the same way. You should have more money. It's like, well, I got enough. I mean,
for
the
what?
mortgage is paid off, and no, it's not enough.
I was having this conversation with a girlfriend the other day and about how actors are being paid a lot more, and especially American actors, because if they, everything's happening out of the country now. And if you do want to work, you've got to work for a lesser pay. And she was really upset about it and really angry about it, because she's like, I'm making less than I made when I was 24, and, we're, heading into our 50s. And it's like, I get it. But I guess my thing shifted when our daughter got sick, and I didn't make my health. I was 2 weeks short of making my health insurance for the first time in my entire life.
Right.
And I was very scared because of, all of, you've been through this. It was all the doctors, all the tests. It's all so expensive when you're going through something like that. And luckily, I was able to, at the last minute, call in a favor. And, Dick Wolf in Law and Order did me a favor.
Wow.
And I didn't. And I will forever, if they call and they ask me to be a lawyer, they're the only people I will be a lawyer for. But they really did do me a solid. And so now my criteria shifted. It's like, I have enough money, we're not rich by any means, but we have enough.
Yeah.
And our kids are healthy, knock on wood, thank God.
Yeah.
And I just want to make my health insurance and have enough money to live.
Yeah.
It's okay if I make what I make what I made when I was 25 on, Battlestar Galactica 20 years ago, where they were underpaying us then. It's okay because it's enough. And I think, it has to be enough. If we don't have control over it, it's going to have to be enough. And I don't want to be angry about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think is knowing where that is. I was reading an article about a guy who had $6 billion. He said he couldn't donate to charity because he didn't have enough money unless you had 10 billion.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, yeah, but you got 6 billion. So it's a psychological trick, but you got to have some sense of when's enough. Because as long as you focus on that, you can't really focus on the kids and the family and life and your flowers in the yard or just basic stuff, because you're so willing to trade off everything for this more thing. Yeah. And it's a sickness in my mind. It's to be able to, and I grew up at a time when, where I grew up, nobody had enough. I didn't realize it. We were all but it was so much joy and happiness and people, community, people looked out for each other. And my grandmother would kind of, take people in and care and, just do things. And they were funny, and there was joyous. I mean, joy but it wasn't because, you got to know when is enough. Now,
Yeah.
this society we live in keeps harping on what we don't have and what
What
we
you
should
don't
have.
have.
And if it wasn't for those people, then you would have had.
Well, and the
So,
comparison,
yeah,
that
always.
thing and the expectation and the
Yeah.
entitlement and
Yeah.
all of
yeah.
this stuff is really heartbreaking.
It
And
is
the
heartbreaking.
lack and loss of community.
That's but when we, I think the criteria I was always told, the God and the devil is, God joins us together and the devil tears us apart. And when something's coming, what's ripping us apart? What makes us, we keep. And I finally realized that I had to let go even the concept of race. I mean, are we people or are we really uniquely different people and entitled to different things? And somehow we're special because of pigmentation? What the hell is that about?
Or where we were born.
I mean, are we humans in that family, our humanity that joins us all, or is this other nonsense an excuse to be awful? So all those things, but to know that I remember when I was doing a lot of theater, I just wanted to be in a movie. Will I ever get in a movie? And then you get blessed to do that. And then it's like, well, it's not just to be in a movie. I got to be in a certain kind of movie. And then it's like, well, I got to be a star of the movie. It's like, and I got to get paid. I mean, what's the point of being a star if I'm not getting paid? And so
the most embarrassing thing that's ever come out of my mouth whilst working. I called my manager when I was 20 years old. And I'd gotten like my first feature film and I was so excited. And then you start talking to the other actors and you find out what they're getting paid. Right. And then, you're on location and it's costing you this much money. And I literally called him and out of my mouth came, I'm losing money on this picture. Like, in what way does it not only that, like I've never used the word picture in my entire life to describe a film, but like I was like, and I yelled it and he just started dying laughing and was like, be grateful you got a job. And like this your first feature film, like enjoy it because you might not get another one,
That's right. Yeah.
But it's really hard to not constantly move your ceiling, it's like we accomplish certain things. And, I don't know about you, but I always knew I was capable of getting to this point in my career, but I never dreamed I'd actually get here. And then when you actually get here, you're like, no, but I wanted to go there.
Yeah.
I could do that too. Why haven't I been able to do that? And it's very easy to look around and, forget that feeling of when you booked your first job, like that first job.
Yeah. No, we are truly, truly blessed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's millions and millions of people would just to be where we are sitting now. And I get that. Oh.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's you've had a remarkable career and it's inspired so many people, including children, which you talked about. It's and it continues to inspire people. Like I'm trying to decide if I can show my 4-year-olds Ghostbusters, and I think I can. She understands make-believe.
They kind of, it's make-believe, and it's the librarian. She's the one. If you can get past the librarian, that was like, when she comes out, it was like, oh my God, then you kind of go. But I see
exactly.
a lot of
and maybe Gozer at the end. Like maybe the end. We might have to fast forward through the red dress and the heavy breathing. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think my babysitter or showed my kids, because I didn't want them to see it either, but she did, and they loved it, and I was upset at first, but somehow, they relate to it. It's funny, and they laugh, and yeah.
Oh, I love it. This has been really nice. Thank you so much for taking the time and spending a bit of your afternoon with me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you, and thanks for inviting me. I know sometimes I've kind of ran off at the mouth, but it's like it's fun. It's fun to talk to you, and I really appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I appreciate the stories and the candor, and I can't wait to see what you do next. And
Well, thank you.
yeah, it's maybe you'll write that book.
Maybe. I'll never say never, so we'll
Exactly.
see. But
Exactly.
yeah, and you too. I mean, I'm just excited to see what's in store for you as well. So,
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You never know. I'm gonna play the best lawyer TV's ever seen. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching this episode. It has been so nice to have you guys here. For those of you listening in your car, you have really missed out today. You guys, I want to remind you all, if you want to hear more about this, to join us at our Patreon, which is patreon.com/The Sackhoff Show. It's a great community. We love you. And if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. I hope you guys had a great Halloween. I love you, and we'll see you next Tuesday, and that's what's up.